now because it's 10 o'clock. Okay. So this webinar is being recorded, and I know that several of you have your note takers logged in as well. If you don't have a note taker, don't feel left out. This will be shared after the fact, both the slides and the recording. So hello and welcome to Virginia Main Street's How to Apply webinar for our fiscal year 2026 grants. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Courtney Maley. I am the Virginia Main Street Program Manager, and later in the webinar, you will meet Blair Bergler, who is the Virginia Main Street Program Administrator for Northern Virginia and the Northern Shenandoah Valley. Before we get started, I just wanted to reiterate again, this webinar is being recorded. The recording and presentation slides will be shared after the session. And during today's webinar, we ask you to please mute yourself and feel free to add any questions you have to the chat as we go along. During this webinar, we will quickly introduce Virginia Main Street and its 3 tiers of participation. Then we'll dive into the grant opportunities that are available, including the Community Vitality Grant, the Downtown Investment Grant, and the Financial Feasibility Grant. Towards the end of the presentation, we will review general administration items relevant to all 3 grants. And lastly, we will have designated time to answer the questions that you're dropping into the chat at the end. Virginia Main Street is housed in the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development's Economic Development and Community Vitality Division. That's a lot of words. Virginia Main Street is a Main Street America coordinating program and works to further the Main Street approach across the Commonwealth. The cumulative success of the Main Street approach in Virginia has earned Main Street a reputation here as a powerful economic revitalization tool. In 2023 alone, Virginia Main Street designated communities collectively generated more than $25 million in privately funded improvements, more than $32 million in public improvements to encourage private investment in downtowns, more than 330 unique businesses created, expanded, or retained in historic commercial districts, and more than 1,000 jobs created or retained for local community members seeking employment. Each year, DHCD and Virginia Main Street offer grant opportunities to further the revitalization and preservation of Virginia's historic downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts with a goal of creating vibrant and thriving local economies. Grant opportunities made exclusively for Virginia Main Street communities include downtown investment grants, community vitality grants, and financial feasibility grants. Eligibility for these grants is dependent on your community's tier of participation in the Virginia Main Street program. And we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the tiers today. If you know what you are, great. If you don't know what you are, I encourage you to connect with a PA after the webinar to confirm your status. So the 3 levels of participation are exploring Main Street, mobilizing Main Street, and advancing Virginia Main Street. We currently have 36 advancing Virginia Main Street communities, and downtown investment grants are awarded exclusively to them, albeit on a competitive basis. We currently have 11 mobilizing Main Street communities, and they are eligible for community vitality grants, as are the more than 50 exploring Main Street communities. And again, those community vitality grants are competitive. Additionally, we have financial feasibility grants that are available to all 3 tiers with a priority given to advancing Virginia Main Street communities. And the priority is given through timing. So they get the first window of time for financial feasibility grants, and if the advancing communities don't exhaust those funds, then it's open to the other two tiers.
All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the individual grant opportunities. First, we're going to talk about our Community Vitality Grants, or CVGs. These are designed to assist Main Street communities and organizations to achieve their downtown revitalization goals. CVG projects are unique one-time momentum generators that spark Main Street efforts and create long-lasting positive impact on the historic downtown or neighborhood commercial districts. CVGs are available for activities such as design projects, wayfinding system development, nonprofit organizational development and website development, strategic planning, work plan and budget development, market studies, entrepreneur support programs, and consultant services. CVGs are available to all active EMS and MMS communities, so our explorers and our mobilizers. For EMS communities, this means that your EMS documentation is up to date and your annual report has been submitted. So please check with your assigned PA if you have any questions or concerns regarding your status. The maximum award amount for a community or organization is $15,000, and CVGs can be administered through the designated local Main Street organization or the local government. All projects require a 3-to-1 match. Please note that this is a change from previous fiscal years, and 3-to-1 means that for every $3 of grant funding applied for, there must be $1 in match committed. dhcd and Virginia Main Street will open applications on February 3rd, 2025. All grant applications and supporting documentation must be submitted in DHCD's Centralized Application Management System, or CAMS, as you'll hear us say throughout this webinar, by 11:59 p.m. on April 25th, 2025. All projects are expected to be underway in the fall of 2025. Projects must be completed, all disbursements made, and final reports submitted within 12 months of the contract start date. CVG applications will be scored on a 0 to 100 point scale. Grant funds are limited, and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70 point threshold will be considered for funding. Funds will be allocated from top scoring until all funds are exhausted. The project scoring methodology is denoted on this slide, and as you'll see, a strong application will clearly explain how the proposed project or service is an effective organizational or economic development strategy for the commercial district. Additionally, competitive applications will make it clear that the applicant is capable of successfully completing the service or project, and that it will increase organizational readiness, strengthen entrepreneurial ecosystems, or enhance the built environment for the district. Okay, so CVG applications must include these supporting documents. First and foremost, the community's mission statement for the district or vision statement for the district and mission statement for the organization, and any community or organizational strategic plans that outline goals for the commercial district or the organization. And then there's some project-related support documents that you should include, such as an effective and appropriate work plan for the project using the template that's hyperlinked in the grant manual, a project budget, also using that template that's hyperlinked in the grant manual, information or documentation on how project costs are estimated, such as estimates from consultants or vendors, and verification of matching funds, such as MOUs or agreements, award letters, or letters of support. And then depending on the project type, you might consider including additional supporting documents such as a map or project renderings, program design, local or regional economic development plans, or studies.
What happened? Carpal tunnel? Yeah, I had that surgery done.
Courtney?
Thank you. I have a feline filing papers in the background. So past CVG projects we have listed out on this slide. You can click to any of the links to take you to a case study on our website that will give you more detail. But I just wanted one example related to Leesburg to expand on that right now. While it was still in the Exploring Main Street tier, the town of Leesburg's Main Street Exploration Project funded an implementation plan to create a nonprofit 501c3 tasked with advancing the local Main Street initiative in Leesburg. And this project ultimately resulted in the creation of Leesburg Movement, which is the organization that submitted Leesburg's successful application for the Mobilizing Main Street program. And they were recently announced in December of last year, so just last month. And that's an example of how these CVG projects are meant to build capacity and build step by step towards advancing the Main Street capacity at the local level. Next.
All right, so next we're going to dive into our downtown investment grants, or DIGs. DIGs allow Main Street organizations to take on unique, catalytic, one-time projects that measurably, creatively, and sustainably advance the organization's goals and strategies. DIGs involve multiple downtown partners and require active leadership and participation by the organization's board, committee, and volunteers. DIGs are available to only designated Advancing Virginia Main Street organizations and must be administered through the local Main Street organization. The maximum award amount per organization or project is $75,000. The match requirement has been updated for fiscal year 26 and is now based on a sliding scale. So bear with me while I go through this. Grant requests for $25,000 or less require a 3-to-1 match, meaning that for every $3 of grant funding requested, there must be $1 of matching funds committed. Grant requests for $25,001 to $50,000, so that middle ask, require a 2-to-1 match, meaning that for every $2 of grant funding requested, there must be $1 of match committed. And then grant requests for $50,001 or more, so the top third, require a 1-to-1 match, meaning that for every $1 of grant funding requested, there must be $1 of matching funds committed. Again, applications will open on February 3rd. All applications and supporting documentation must be submitted in CAMS by April 25th. All projects are expected to be underway in the fall of 2025. Projects must be completed, all disbursements made, and final reports submitted within 12 months of the contract start date. Grant applications for the DIG will be scored similarly to CVG on a 0 to 100 point scale. Grant funds are limited, and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70-point threshold will be considered for funding. Funds will be allocated from top scoring until all funds are exhausted. The project scoring methodology is denoted here. A strong application will clearly explain how the proposed project will result in measurable economic improvement in the Main Street District. The project will A, address one or more of the organization's transformation strategies, B, support the community's vision for the Main Street District, C, clearly align with the mission of the Main Street organization, and D, align with documented community revitalization goals. Note, while more than one activity may be included in an application, all activities should cohere in a single project. All right, DIG applications must include these supporting documents. So we're going to talk about two different kinds, organizational support documents and then project-related support documents. So organizational documents will include the community's vision statement for the Main Street District and mission statement for the Main Street organization, the organization's strategic plan or transformation strategy report or overview, and the organization's annual comprehensive work plan or dashboard. And then project-related support documents will include an effective and appropriate work plan using the template in the grant manual, a project budget using the template in the grant manual, information on how project costs were estimated, such as estimates from consultants and vendors, and verification of matching funds. Depending upon the project type, you might also consider including support documents such as maps or project renderings, program design, local or regional economic development plans, or studies.
So we have, again, a few examples here with hyperlinks that will be active when the slides get sent out after this webinar is completed. And I wanted to highlight in particular Downtown Lynchburg Association's Bright Nights on the Bluff Walk project, which created an annual immersive 8-week light display in the downtown that draws residents and visitors to the historic district during the holiday season. So this was originally pitched for the 2023 holiday season and resulted in a significant increase in retail foot traffic for brick and mortar businesses that were still recovering from the pandemic during that holiday season. And it was so successful that they have built on it a little bit more and repeated it again in 2024. So I think that this really will become a cornerstone of brick and mortar holiday sales support for their downtown going forward. And it's a really good example of how to use the DIG grant to build the capacity and create a catalytic project. So next.
Okay, financial feasibility grants are the final Virginia Main Street grant that we'll be reviewing today. FFGs allow Main Street communities to work with owners of significant white elephant buildings or structures with non-productive upper floor space. These buildings could be functionally vacant and or deteriorated properties whose poor condition creates a notion of physical and economic blight in the surrounding area. The purpose of an FFG is to identify the highest and best use of such properties and develop necessary plans or studies to assist the owner in developing the property or allow the Main Street organization to market the potential rehabilitation and reuse of the property to private developers and investors. FFGs typically fund the development of preliminary design reports and renderings, building code and zone assessments, pro forma development and construction estimates, as well as environmental reports, market demand studies, and gap financing research. All Virginia Main Street communities are eligible to apply for FFGs, but priority is given to advancing Virginia Main Street communities. The maximum award amount per organization or project is $25,000. Although award amounts will be based on express project needs and the two-tiered structure outlined in the grant manual. No match is required for an FFG. However, it may be necessary to secure additional funding from other sources to fully fund the study. Okay, so Courtney talked a little bit earlier, gave you a teaser about how we're going to give priority to advancing communities with FFG, and here you go. So DHCD will consider applications from VMS communities on a first-come, first-served basis from February 3rd through April 25th. If program funds are not fully obligated by April 25th, DHCD will open applications on April 28th to all tiers of Virginia Main Street communities on a first-come, first-served basis until funding is fully obligated. FFGs can be administered through the designated local Main Street organization or local government. No organization and or locality will be allowed to have more than one open FFG at a time. All grant applications and supporting documentation must be submitted in CAMS, just like the DIG and CVG. All projects are expected to be underway by fall of 2025. Projects are completed or must be completed, all disbursements made, and final report submitted no later than April 30th, 2026. So FFG grant applications are scored on a 0 to 100 point scale. Grant funds are limited and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70 point threshold will be considered for funding. Should be similar to the other ones. Sound familiar? And then the project scoring methodology is here on the screen. As you'll see, a strong application will clearly explain how the redevelopment of the proposed building will be catalytic for the Main Street community. The application should demonstrate that the successful redevelopment of this property will have significant economic benefits for the Main Street community and will result in a stronger, more diversified business environment in the Main Street district and/or increased downtown housing. Additionally, an effective application will indicate the strong likelihood of redevelopment and that these feasibility funds are necessary to move the project forward. FFG applications must include these supporting documents: the community's vision statement for the district and mission statement for the organization, an effective and appropriate work plan using the template in the manual, a project budget using the template in the manual, and documentation of cost estimates such as consultant proposals and match verification if applicable. Additionally, you'll want to include photographs of the building, a map showing the condition and location of the property, and then you'll also want to include any studies or additional background information that have already been completed on the building.
So here we have 3 examples of successful past FFG projects, and I wanted to focus today on Marion's 120 North Chestnut Street project. That was an FFG that occurred last year, and they utilized the grant funding to study a vacant vernacular building from the 1960s that explored different build out options. So as you can see from the picture, it is a very modest structure. It's a single story and it fronts right on the street, but zoning does allow for this property to go up additional stories. So the FFG explored 3 different options, one just leaving the building envelope as it is, and then additional options that included upper story office and housing components. And so the property owner and developer were able to then do some cost benefit analysis to decide what would be the highest and best use for this property. Would it just be a brewery, or would it be a brewery with some co-working space and some housing as well?
All right, we're at the tail end. You guys are doing a great job hanging in. So now that we've reviewed the 3 Virginia Main Street grant opportunities, we'd like to take some time and review some additional information that is applicable to all 3 Virginia Main Street grants and grantees. So before the grant applications open on February 3rd, we encourage you to use the interactive map on the Virginia Main Street website and linked here to confirm your community's participation level and tier in the Virginia Main Street program. And if you have any questions or concerns, reach out to your PA directly. As noted, all applications will be submitted via CAMS. You can access CAMS using the link on the slide or the DHCD site. In order to access CAMS and complete an application for funding, a locality or organization must establish a CAMS profile. A profile request can be made by going to the CAMS site and selecting the register option. Keep in mind your organization's unique entity ID or UEI and federal employer identification number or FEIN are required to register in CAMS. Please allow up to 5 business days for DHCD to process and approve your registration request. So keep in mind that timeline when you're looking to apply. And then once your organization has been registered in CAMS, You'll be able to log in with your username and password and follow the instructions in the grant manual to apply. Please keep in mind that Chrome is the recommended browser when using CAMS, and you are strongly encouraged to save often. As you complete the application, you will want to be sure to save each page. You do have the option to close out of the CAMS and return to the application at any time until the application is submitted or the deadline has passed. Again, all applicants will submit their application in CAMS, and applicants must upload a signed copy of the organization's Commonwealth of Virginia W-9. So this is not the federal W-9, it's the state W-9. So Commonwealth of Virginia W-9 to CAMS by the grant deadline. And then if you need any additional instructions on CAMS, please check out the CAMS user guide via this link. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about match. So match can include cash, in-kind services, and/or volunteer hours. Project-related in-kind services provided by the local government, consultant, and other Main Street stakeholders or partners may be used as match. Additionally, time contributed solely to the implementation of the project by volunteers from the Main Street organization or the organization's partners may also be included as match. Volunteer hours are calculated at the rate provided by the independent sector each April and linked here. If you have any questions about match, please consult your PA directly. All right, so it's some additional items to note. DHCD has an agency-wide audit policy. All grantees that receive funding during a specific program year are required to submit financial documents or audits in accordance with the policy. The full policy, including an explanation of the specific document requirements, can be found via this link. Grantees must provide their organization's procurement policy and adhere to it throughout the implementation of the project. If an application is selected for funding, a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between DHCD and the grantee will be executed, and the organization must be in compliance with DHCD's audit policy, as I mentioned, before any funds are dispersed. The MOU will outline project deliverables, conditions, fund disbursement, and termination. Reporting through CAMS is required for all projects, so hopefully you get to know CAMS pretty well. This includes quarterly progress reports and final reports as outlined in the MOU. Note, applicants who are behind on reporting in CAMS for any open DHCD grant or grants will be dinged during application scoring as it relates to organizational readiness and capacity. So as you're working on your application, please make sure that you're up to date in CAMS for any other projects. A portion of the awarded grant amount, up to 10% of the total, must be used to cover administrative costs. And then keep in mind that financial support documentation for all project-related expenses and leverage must be uploaded to CAMS prior to closeout. Phew. All right.
Thanks, Blair. It looks like we have one question that got answered already in the chat. If anyone else has a question, please take a second and fill out the chat and we will answer it.
Amy, do you mind just reading the question and the answer for those on the recording?
Yes. All right, so the question we had was about CDFIs. Is this a grant opportunity being offered instead of or in addition to the Commonwealth Capital for Communities Fund? If it's in addition, is there any information on the timing of the grant opportunity? And the answer is the Commonwealth Capital for Communities Fund is only available to CDFIs or entities pursuing certification as a CDFI, and it is not currently capitalized. There's no upcoming grant cycle for that program.
So similar, but not the same. Blair had mentioned if you have projects in CAMS that are active, making sure that everything is up to date. It's not just your Virginia Main Street projects that should be up to date and current. It should be all projects in CAM. So I know we have on the call today some of our colleagues from the real estate office, from CDFI, from CBL, and even Go Virginia. So if you have open projects with any of those other programs, we do talk to each other, and we would like for you to be up to date on everything related to economic development and community vitality before we award you additional funds. Are there any other questions that we can answer? There's so many of you, and so many of you are new. There have to be some more questions. Okay, fully enlightened. We have done our job. So thank you. Remember, for additional information, please refer to the grant manual. Oh, is there a question? No? Okay.
I'll
Refer
ask
to
a
the
question.
grant. Okay.
So I'm from Farmville. If we do like one of the grants, like the Community Vitality Grant, can we also apply for the DIG grant, let's say?
So Farmville would be eligible for DIG and for FFG, and you could apply for both, yes. We just would want to be sure that you're not behind on any other projects.
Gotcha. So we couldn't apply for CVG?
Correct. That's only for the lower tiers.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have the grant manual linked on this slide. It's also available on the DHCD website. And that's where all of the nitty-gritty details about each grant are located. Don't hesitate to reach out to Virginia Main Street at dhcd.virginia.gov or to your program administrator if you have other questions or concerns. So before we leave, I wanted to plug a few more trainings that we have coming up. So next week, Virginia Enterprise Zone How to Qualify workshops are taking place in person in Chilhowie, Henrico, and Martinsville. You can click on that link to register to attend. There will be a virtual webinar next week about community business launch and how you can apply for those funds next year. And then in 2 weeks, the Exploring Main Street Community Interchange. So this is strictly informational, inspirational. We'll be talking with the Berryville Main Street program and learning about some of the projects that they have done in a very small community with less capacity. And then finally, everyone within the sound of my voice is invited to the Virginia Main Street 40th anniversary reception on February 4th in Richmond at Main Street Station. Please click on the link to RSVP. I would love to see you there in force and talk to you in person about all the great things that you have done and are going to do. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you in fiscal year 2026.